Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we're on our educational channel, and we're honored to have Dr. Earl wheatfall as our guest senior, and he's going to be talking about some upcoming events that Lincoln University and alumni are bringing forth to the area. Welcome to the program, Dr. Wheatfall.
Wheatfall.
Wheatfall. Get me together.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
That mistake is common.
My people that watch my show, they know I'm the nutty professor. So tell our audience, first of all, tell our audience a little bit about yourself. And let's go back, go back to, like, I always say, go to kindergarten and
no, don't go there.
Then talk about how you came up, some of the mentors that influenced your life, and then we'll go into how you got involved in what you're doing as far as in the educational lane. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm the first generation college goer from my family, which was purely by accident. I was a football player, and I got recruited to Texas College first with my high school coach. And after leaving there, I thought I was
talk about high school. Talk about what high school you went to.
I went to a school. It's no longer in existence. It's called G.W. Carver High School. But up until 1954, it was a black school.
And where was it located?
In Navasota, Texas, right out from Texas A&M, right near Prairie View. I should have gone to Prairie View because it was 10 miles from where I lived. So after leaving there, I went to Texas College and stayed for a year and a summer. Then I ended up coming to Lincoln University. At that time, they had the rule where you had to lay out a year. So I stayed there a year. Then I started playing football for Lincoln University. And I played there for 2 years. And then I got drafted in the military. And that may have been because of my GPA.
What year was this?
1961. I jumped forward to 1961. And the person that I ran into that was most impactful on my life was a guy by the name of Dwight T. Reed, who was a coach. In the day's time, he would have been a coach in the NFL. He and Bud Wilkinson played together at Minnesota. And he was a strong builder of character. Football was a mechanism for him to teach young men how to be good citizens. And if there's nothing else you learn from football, you have to learn all your plays, your X's and your O's, and you play well, keep your GPA up. But one thing he impounded upon you is you must be a good citizen in order to participate in this society. Now, looking at where he was in Jefferson City, which is probably 95% white, and with a historical black college in the center of it. And if you ever look at the history of Lincoln, you'll see how that occurred and how it's going on right now. But I left that, went to the military state for 3 years, went to Germany, played football while I was in the service, left the service and came back to Lincoln and graduated in 1968. While I was there, I picked up 6 hours of graduate school while I was finishing up my BS. I got my master's from Lincoln, then left there and got a job at Virginia Commonwealth University in Virginia. As you know, if you were at Virginia State, you're familiar with Virginia Commonwealth University. Mm-hmm. It used to be MPI or something like that, but it turned into Virginia Commonwealth University. And I stayed there for 18 years. And my job there—
What was you teaching?
I was not teaching. They brought me in as administrator, and my job was to identify African American students. Can you imagine throwing a rabbit into the briar patch? They put me right into where I needed to be because I took the curriculum from Lincoln that I'd used myself at Lincoln and implemented it at Virginia Commonwealth University. And by doing that, we brought in a number of students, and I was asked to take the rejects of students that did not score high on the SAT or the ACT or have high GPAs and get those kids through school. Well,
Kids
they didn't
like
know.
me,
Yeah,
remember
now
off camera, I told you how
you
I went
were.
down to Virginia State and had that 0.7 grade point average. People say, Mr. Nelson, no, you had a 1 point. Nope. 0 point, and I had wound up in remedial courses, and they had a counselor like you to
Yeah,
try to help straighten
yeah,
us up.
yeah. And we had a staff of about 6 or 8 people that was designed to do that, and we got a federal grant that supported us doing it. It was called a Special Services Program, the Upward Bound Program, Special Services, Talent Search. Those programs we had at the university. But the key to this was that I knew at the time that the SAT, ACT did not adequately judge what our students could do. So we brought our students on the campus. I think the first year I had 120 of them. I brought on campus, and we started building them up in writing, reading and writing and computation. So once we worked on that, after 5 years, they did a study, and they found out that our students who had those low GPAs came in with that summer program and the counseling and advising that we had, that our students did as well as the regular students that they admitted with the high GPAs and the ACTs. So that's what happened there. From there, I left and went to University of Houston for a couple of years. And after that, I came to Milwaukee Area Technical College, and I stayed there for another 15 years and retired.
Tell me this: what did you see the difference in each one of those educational institutions that you had worked for and attended that was different? How they approached uh, students of color, and how you stated that program was pretty effective after the kids participated. Do they have anything like that going now? First of all, what state do you feel education is in as it relates to communities of color? And I'm talking about the bottom three-fourths of our community, because that's where I feel I come from, and
Yeah,
that's where the most help is needed.
we're in the same place. I think uh, it's kind of a duality. We are in larger numbers at the lower rung. A significant number of our students are not going to school. For some reason, they're not going to school. We're not getting enough of them going to school. We are most effective at the historical Black colleges that has come into being, has getting this reputation finally, getting its due. Because as you know, our students went to Lincoln, went to Howard, Hampton, Morehouse, Spelman, all these different schools. Then went on to graduate school and did well, but they couldn't get into those other schools initially. So the historical Black colleges had a major role. And I would suggest, in fact, both of my children I sent to a historical Black college, even though I got a doctorate from University of Virginia, and my granddaughter is at Spelman. I sent both of my kids went to Hampton and the Morehouse. So so you can see the nurturing that's needed there. Now, when you look at our institutions, we need more presence at our institutions for our kids, because I think they learn more from us. There's an empathy from African American faculty that helps, that gives our kids a chance to develop. Sometimes there's a delayed development there, or figuring out really where you are. In fact, the program that I put into place at Virginia Commonwealth University, they ended up replicating that program for all of the students. They created an advising center. They created all kinds of centers that dealt with students from their initial interest into the entry into the university. So, so those programs help the PWIs to learn more about how to manage and how to help African American students be successful. But the most important thing, I think, is that we need to have more Black faculty who are on whatever campus, the Historical Black College or the PWI, primarily white institution. They need to be there teaching our kids because we learn better from us.
Let me say this, interrupt you a little bit. As I talked about my 0.7, I was a track athlete, and coming out of New York, my coach went to college with Jim Brown and at Syracuse and what have you. And when I came out, you know how it was in the 60s and the late 50s. As far as sports is concerned, somebody took my SATs back then. I'm saying that you're living in the era that you're living in.
That's right.
And back then, going to a predominantly white institution that had scholarships to Brown, to Syracuse, and my coach told me I wouldn't last 2 seconds on them campuses. And back then, you remember they didn't have any Black anything. You had little groups. When I'm bringing this conversation full circle, you mentioned nurturing, and HBCUs have that nurturing effect for kids like myself. I thought that people were just born smart.
Yeah, but let me interject. The beauty of the nurturing is that if I cut a class and one of my instructors saw me that day, he would ask me, "Where were you, wheatfall?" My class is at 1:00. Our instructors had us sitting in place. We didn't come at 5 minutes after 1 and try to come to class. If you weren't there at 1:00 or before, he locked the door.
Well, that's how it was at Central State. They didn't lock the door, but I must have took kinesiology 3 times. Dr. Lewis said, Mr. Nelson, you're not going nowhere until you pass this.
Yeah.
And they were determined to get the most out of you. Finally, I realized, damn, I'm smart as anybody else. I might be smarter. But if you don't have that nurturing.
That's right. And that confidence building, that drive of putting that finger in your face and telling you, you can do this. See, the whole deal is, I think we didn't have the confidence to really buckle down, or the study habits. See, education is habit. Is habit. If you do 10,000 math problems, you're going to be a good mathematician. It's just a matter of, it's almost like shooting the basketball.
The other part of the story, the other part of the story, you're talking about study. I wanted to pledge Kappa, and you had to go to MIC Club, Men Interested in Kappa. And that was 6 months before 6 weeks before you got online. But every night, that 6 weeks, you had to go to the library.
That's right.
All right. My first week, I'm walking around the library looking at the girls and what have you. I see some of my classmates in study groups. See, you bringing out key points that I know how I came up and what I thought. And that was in the 60s. It's no different now. And so when I start going to class, I start seeing they getting good grades. It's not because they were so smart. They were studying. Yes, you had to learn how to study.
You had to learn how to study. That is so key, to learn how to study. My granddaughter tell me, we'd be on the telephone. She said, "Granddaddy, I've got to go now." I said, "What you got?" "It's my time to study." And she's an honor student. Been an honor student all her life, but it's because She knows how to study, how to use the time management. You got to use your time right. I mean, you're going to have some fun when you're 19, 20 years old. You know, you're feeling it. You're going to want to be around looking at the girls and stuff, but you got to set aside a time to study. And if you set aside, I guarantee you, if you put in as much time, I had the 40-hour rule when I would talk to students. I'd always meet with them and talk with them in a group. I say, this is a job. You're preparing to go to work. So if you go to work for somebody, you're going to work 40 hours a week. I want you to start right now of using the 40 hours of studying. I guarantee you, any student that we have coming out of our community, I don't care who they are, if they put in 40 hours a week of studying, constructive study, not playing around, but organizing themselves and studying, I guarantee you they will be successful.
So now let's switch gears and talk about what's going on with Lincoln and what they plan to do in the near future.
From my perspective, I'm an alumnus. I'm not on the staff. I'm an alumnus. And the vision I see for Lincoln is now we've got some challenges. We have a decline in enrollment. Alumni can play a major role in increasing our enrollment. We really got to press hard in order to get alumnus to recruit students and get them in school and get the money for them. Money is a major issue, as you can see with the Biden administration trying to give back that $10,000 to people. It's really a challenge. So Lincoln needs to do that. And that's probably one of the challenges we're going to have when we get to Kansas City on July the 6th through the 9th. We're going to be in Kansas City at the National Convention. We're expecting about 200 alums to come and attend that event. But our focus is going to be on getting students at Lincoln and getting them through Lincoln. Retention is a major issue. Our students got to get there and pay attention to what's going on, especially since the PWIs and the other more attractive institutions are scraping off the top students. So we've got to get the middle and probably that 2.0 and up students. We've got to go after those students. And we got to get them on campus, and we got to have activities on campus that engage them. Keep them on campus. You got to get their attention. In today's students, they are in a different place than we were. They have so many options. I can be talking to my granddaughter about something. She can pick up her telephone and find the statistics on it while we're talking. So my point is, we've got some challenges ahead of us. We've got a faculty there that's a majority white faculty that's dealing with the students that we got to deal with.
You have a white president.
Yeah, that's more than that. He's a novice president. He's never been a president anyway.
He was the athletic director. I think I talked to you off camera and told you I had done interviews with him over the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
And people wonder about that people of color. It's like, I just did an interview with the president and chief operating officer here in Kansas City, Urban League, Miss Gwendolyn Grant. Did that, I think that was last Friday. And we have What's Up, like we have What's Up Kansas City. We have What's Up in every city in the United States. And What's Up Worldwide, What's Up Latin America. But at any rate, so I'm going to What's Up Wichita, and I'm looking at some stuff, and they're showing you got a white person that's the president of the Urban League in Wichita.
Oh, that's it.
And I talk white and black, and I believe speaking truth to power. All right. So going back to our day in college, most of the people, I'm 71, you said you're a little older. We went to black universities. It was no PDI or none of that per se. Yeah. All the sports players that these people standing on their shoulders, They went to black universities. They couldn't even play pro sports. Couldn't even do the college sports, really. And soon as we get through that door, the first thing we did is go to those big institutions, get that next degree. Yeah. And then what we did is come back home and move out our neighborhoods. Yeah. And want to chase the majority community, buy their old houses at absorbent amount of prices. Then they circle around and come in, and you call it gentrification, and they come and they buy in your neighborhood. You can't even afford to live where you grew up because now the housing is so expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we figured it out, but we haven't acted on it.
I don't think we really focused on it's a couple of levels you mentioned there in your conversation. I looked at the Alabama and the Texas A&M basketball game today. 10 black guys on the floor. Coaches are white. Audience predominantly white. Can you imagine the dynamics what's going on right there? They are feeling the standard, and these athletics have become college's new industry. It's become a new industry for cities.
But it's all. Let me say this: it's always been the industry. They couldn't put the pieces together. It's just like the NFL, the NBA. Because I'm in media and we're running out of time, I'm gonna explain this real quick. Okay. All right. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Did you see how they celebrated here?
Yes.
All right. Think about all the red jerseys that were bought.
Oh, wow.
Who benefited from that? All right. Black people, we know the NFL is racist. So why would you support any NFL apparel or anything? Who you give your money to is who you give your power to.
Yeah.
All right. Because you've been programmed. Now, when you look at any NBA, any professional sport, when the camera pans in on the crowd, you cannot see any black people unless they zoom in on them. You can't even afford to go to these games. You're living vicariously through buying apparel, all
living
the
hotels, buying the hotels, eating the food.
Not the hotel, the price chopper. Everybody's going to the bank but you. Yeah. You can't even afford to take your 2 teenage kids to the game and sit low because corporate America has bought all the low seats in every sport, and they give them to their executives.
Their friends, yes.
Yeah, and what have you. So
the same thing is happening on college campuses.
Yeah,
the same thing. College campus is nothing but a feeder for the pros.
All right, and so everybody's making money but us.
But us.
Yeah,
I kind of blame us. Let me look at it from another point of view. Since we know that our community is rich in real estate, why haven't we created a kind of
because we're programmed. It's no, you saying why? We're programmed and don't want to admit it. When you talk to a middle class, and a lot of our blacks that's education and got a little something, they think they upper class. They just middle class. Yeah. And when you talk to them, they don't want to recognize the same thing white people don't want to recognize. White people, when you start bringing slavery, and they really don't want to hear it because they don't want to admit to it. Black people don't want to admit, I've moved out of my community, my values have changed, and I have not really participated in anything meaningful. I'm going to close this out with our whole thing is block voting and group economics, and who's responsible for that. Now, here in Kansas City, you got like Highland Dairy, you have all of these people delivering services to black schools. What are they giving back into your community? and they're not.
Very little. One other thing, we've got to take responsibility. Now, you and I are talking right now. We've got to take responsibility for, in our circles, to talk about the richness of our communities and how we can become millionaires on going back there and developing those properties and creating affordable housing. We've got to do that. We've got to trust one another to come together collectively and get the big dollars to do it with.
But the trust is broken. See, I'm in media right now, but I used to own the second largest Black general contracting company in Kansas City.
Wow.
Back in the 80s and 90s. Renovated courthouse downtown, courthouse in Independence, Lake Jacomo Sheriff Station. I did sixplexes. I did post offices, Crown Center. I put the railings around the ice skating ring, downstairs, upstairs. I did catch basins. I had $1 million bonding capacity, never had more than a $20,000 line of credit.
Wow.
When you start talking about development and our community, you have to have some assets. You have to have some connections with the banking.
I think collectively we can come up with those dollars.
We can, hold it. We can, but we are programmed not to work collectively. That's what I'm saying. Okay, now, the women have these sister groups where they have some same problems, but it's under the surface. But they will present a unified front. When you're talking about working with Black men and having a real group, it's like, what's in it for me? It's right up under the surface. Yeah. You can't get too many people to do too much of anything at this point in time because how much economics play a part in our lives.
Just one little quick note before we leave. I certainly want to follow up. You said you got a what's up in almost every city.
Right.
It's some way we should be able to get 10 African Americans in each one of these cities to come together and say, we're going to put up $100,000 together and buy some properties and just do a whole block. See, that blocks of property that's neglected. We got to figure out, and you can make money doing it.
Well, the problem is when you're programmed to distrust your brother, that is a major bridge that has to be gap. That gap has to be filled, and it's very hard to fill it when. My closing is when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. The people have you believe in, you got to just invest in you and your family. Your community is lost. And people will be like, I got to take care of myself. I got to take care of my kids. Instead of seeing, if I'm investing in my community, that's taking care of me and it's taking care of other people. But
when we get a chance, I want us to talk about the negatives of integration.
Well,
it ain't all what it's cut up to be.
It's all Trojan horses. It's like charter schools are Trojan horses.
Yeah.
Diversity is Trojan horses. Black people take these diversity jobs. They don't have no other job. And then they push, the majority community pushes their agenda with a Black face. And we are not wise enough to see what's going on. We got a minute left. What do you have to say in this last minute?
I need to say that Lincoln University, I want to go local now. Lincoln University needs to reclaim its institution's legacy. We need to go back to our heritage and come up with some kind of way. And our leadership, because the leadership that selected a novice president was African-American leadership, Black man, selected that, made that decision. We need to come up with some way, because in this country, we have some African-American men who can stand up in front of our youth and tell them, you can be like me. You can do this.
I think that's appropriate on closing. Sorry to cut you off. We got less than 30 seconds. And we're going to have you back on to talk about some other issues. But as we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Thanks, Carlos.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.